Hi, I'm going to do this presentation as if you are one of the stakeholders of Thompson Motion Manufacturing because this is the final project for Session 5 of Cyber Defense, and it's titled Comprehensive Security Solution Project. Thompson Motion Manufacturing really needs security. And here are the reasons why. Your company has been growing rapidly. You're gaining more government contracts, and so more scrutiny is laid upon you. Because you're gaining government contracts and they need to verify security, your weak points have been audited. Comparing last year's revenue for TTM at 1.2 million, this year you only made 700,000, and you were projected to make 1.8 million. The reason for this potential loss of $1.1 million is because of malware that had stopped production. There are going to be two approaches to increasing the security of TMM. The logical security plan. First, we're going to look at your perimeter defenses, such as network firewall. Then we're going to look at your host-based defenses, such as endpoint security. And then we're going to look at what applications you have, what vulnerabilities they may pose. First, looking at cyber defense, at the perimeter, we're going to install a Fortinet FortiGate 100E. This is a next generation firewall produced by Fortinet, and it has a feature called FortiGuard, which includes intrusion protection system, an antivirus, a web filter, and an email filter. Included in this perimeter defense is also another vendor's firewall, SonicWall TZ600, comparable to the 100E. This next generation firewall has a feature what's called Sonic Guard. It has RFDP, which is reassembly free deep packet inspection. It also has botnet command and control, and RTDMI, which is real-time deep memory inspection, which forces undetectable malware to reveal its weaponry and protected memory space. And it also has built-in next-generation antivirus. I'll get into more details why we're going to implement two firewalls in this logical defense strategy. First, I want to look at host-based defense. I did speak of endpoint security protection. Before we want to do that, though, all of your devices are on Windows XP, which Microsoft no longer supports. They're no longer producing security patches. That's a huge security vulnerability that we want to remediate right away. So the plan will be to first update all workstations to Windows 10. The reason for this is Windows 8 will be end of life in 2023, and we don't want you guys to be in that situation where you need to think about migrating to Windows 10 from Windows 8. So Windows 10 is a very viable solution, and its end of life isn't until 2020 is the projection. So that gives you guys several more years before you need to think about upgrading your workstations again. The next step is to upgrade your servers to Windows Server 2016. Similar reason, we could go to 2012, but then you're going to be looking at, in a few years, having to upgrade to Windows 2016 anyway. So we might as well go to the Windows Server 2016 now. Now, this might sound a little unusual to you, but I'm actually recommending that for your endpoint protection that you go with the Microsoft Windows Defender, which previously in Windows Vista and Windows 7 was referred to as Microsoft Security Essentials, and that was bundled together in Windows Defender, which Defender used to be just malware. So it is now a malware detection and antivirus built into Windows. And the reason I'm recommending doing this is because other versions of antivirus actually disable Windows Defender. They can't run at the same time because they're doing the same thing. So Windows updates their virus definitions just like any other antivirus. And the other reason for doing this is we're going to save you money where you can implement other security features that I believe are more important than endpoint protection or antivirus. As far as host-based defense goes, I'm going to recommend that you leave Windows Firewall turned on, that you turn it on, and that you approach any configurations with the Windows Firewall through GPO or Group Policy Objects. Next, I want to look at application defense. We talked about looking at what applications are being run. It's estimated that 40% of all breaches are actually because of web site breaches. Looking at your web application, I'm not going to recommend that you host your website remotely, and the reason for that is because you already have your website intact. You've paid a lot of money to have that built. It's a good-looking website. What I will recommend is that you move all your shopping cart and transactions to a third party, and I'll get to that later. But as far as application defense goes, I recommend you use IBM Application Security on the cloud. What this is you can subscribe to it, or it's an on-demand service where they will scan your website for any vulnerabilities, and then you can see where you need to patch or what vulnerabilities you need to pay attention to. And I'll get to how you will follow through with those steps later. You also have an inventory server, which will need to be updated, and it'll need to be the most current version provided by the developer. This is so that any security issues or flaws they find, you're updating the software to meet those new security vulnerabilities. And the same thing goes for your CRM application. Right now it's outdated. The developer that created your CRM is no longer providing updates or is even supporting that version. So I highly recommend that that's a step we take in this in response to this audit as well. So this is my overall sketch, if you will, of TMM's network. And I want to start with pointing out the redundancy here with using Comcast Internet and CenturyLink Internet. Comcast will be the primary on WAN 1, and then on WAN 2, excuse me, WAN 2 will be the secondary, and it will be an automatic failover. So the FortiGate firewall will be configured to where if it detects WAN 1 going down, it's going to come back up on WAN 2. Also, here you can see I've got a DMZ coming off of the FortiGate. This is to protect the rest of the network from any traffic that is going to try to access your website from the internet. Within the internal network, I have a router here to route VLANs, especially the IP phone VLAN, because the Fortinet firewall does not route voice traffic, doesn't give it priority. And then here we have the core switch to the segregation of the network that is going to have this servers on them. And you can see where I've implemented this second firewall is to create true segmentation between your servers and your host computers. This firewall has all the capabilities of the FortiGate. We discussed that earlier, IPS, antivirus, next generation. And so if any hosts come into your internal environment infected, that will protect your servers from being infected as well. Now moving on to the internal network, we're replacing your Netgear wireless access points with enterprise quality Arrowhive access points. These access points will still only service the office area, as we do not see a need for Wi-Fi in the manufacturing area at this time, although that can be expanded at a later time. You also will see that I've separated the VLANs. These computers that are being used in the office will be on one VLAN, and the computers in the warehouse or the manufacturing area will be on another VLAN, and the voice phones will be on another VLAN. This is for security purposes. Right now, you have them all on the same VLAN, so if a phone were breached if a hacker found a vulnerability in your phone software and they got access to your phone, then they could then launch an attack to the rest of your network. But separating the VLANs like this, that is much harder for an attacker to launch an attack on your other devices. I would also like to point out that I have a Kiwi server here. This does log aggregation, event, and log management. The reason for this is we want the network administrator to be able to view any attacks in real time that might be occurring. Next in my slides here, I want to point out that this is the server rack only. I did not see it necessary to have the network rack, as we already went over the whole network configuration. But this is important because we want your servers, email, inventory production, and your CRM server to remain up at all times as much as possible. So first I want to point out that we're going to implement a UPS. This is an uninterruptible power supply. What this will do is it will filter any dirty power. Also, it will allow your devices to stay online for up to an hour after the power is removed. Also, we're going to make sure each of these servers has a dual power supply, so that if one of the power supplies does fail, and that's the most common failure besides hard drives in a server, you'll be able to simply order that new power supply or replace it if you keep one on hand without the server going down at all. Now on to the physical security plan. I've also categorized this in 3 categories for you. The first is going to be deterrence, such as gates, fences, guards, cameras, and lighting. The building is going to be locked doors, air conditioning improvements in this case, and an outdoor break area. The data center will also have a locked door with badge access. It'll have cinder block walls built all around it and its own environmental controls. I've built a diagram here for you so you can see the idea behind the physical security. First, you're next to a busy highway, so we're going to need to put fences all the way around your compound with a single entrance and a gate. This single entrance will have a gatehouse where the guard will be able to sit and provide a presence to deter any actionable attacks. But the guard will also be able to patrol the parking lot and patrol the areas around the front entrance as well. And this will reduce costs because you won't need more than one guard. Also, at the gate, we will have badge access, so the guard doesn't have to be there at all times. The gate will be opened with a badge by employees by just swiping their badge or just tapping it against a RF reader. This same badge swipe technology will be at the front door, although it'll be a separate security access. And then also we're going to have right now you don't have really great lighting in your parking lot, And so people are feeling unsafe